Have you ever gossiped before?
No, just tell me the story. You suck at intros.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever gossiped about someone behind your back and then behind your back? Let me ask you a question. And then the girl walked into the conversation. It was so...
Dun, dun, dun!
Yeah. It was super awkward and embarrassing and, yeah.
Cool story, bro.
Okay, sorry guys.
Forget the story. Today we're talking about gossip. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Justin.
I'm Emily.
And you are watching That Christian Vlogger. And on this channel, our goal is to help you understand the Bible a little bit better for yourself, but then really to make it practical so you can actually live it out for yourself and experience a closer walk with God. This episode is brought to you by Arise Apparel. Visit ariseapparel.com and use the coupon code JUSTIN for 10% off any purchases. Today, we're going to be talking about gossiping. Gossip is a terrible thing, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Gossip's one of those things that we as Christians don't look down upon. Like, we know that it's not a good thing to do, but yet we still do it.
Yeah, and it really affects your relationship with that person, obviously, because you're not being truthful with them. You're talking about them behind their back, about negative things about them. So really is damaging.
Yeah. Relationships are broken up, whether those like romantic relationships, those are relationships with like your good friends, or even family can oftentimes be destroyed because of gossip. So before we begin, we actually want to kind of define what we are talking about when it comes to gossip, because that's kind of like a slippery term. Is it gossip when you just talk about someone's life even though they're not there and it's not like a negative thing?
Yeah.
So for this purposes in this video, we actually are going to be using the word slander in the place of gossip. And slander is the action or crime of making a false spoken statement damaging a person's reputation. And so when we're talking about gossip, we actually mean that. It's slander. It's not really gossip. So the Bible has a couple of interesting things to say about gossip when it comes to this subject. Proverbs 16:28 says, "A perverse person stirs up conflict, and gossip separates close friends." Have you ever had that happen to you?
Oh yeah, for sure. In high school, if I gossip about someone behind their back and someone gossips about me, it's going to affect the friendship. It's awkward to approach that person afterwards, and it really impacts it negatively in the long run as well.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like more of a male trait or a female trait to gossip. I think a lot of times guys, if they have beef with someone, they'll just tell them, they'll maybe fight it out, and then like once the beef is done, then it's done. But I've noticed that women are a little bit different.
We like to talk with our mouths, to like reason with our
your mouth as opposed to what else?
We're very verbal creatures, and we express verbally and with dialogue. And so I think it's just a really slippery slope. It's so easy to participate in gossip. If you're out with your friends for coffee or something like that, it can quickly go there. Yeah, it can go the wrong way, and then pretty soon, like, feelings are hurt, and then grudges are being held onto, and you lose your best friend after, 12 years or something like that. One more verse we want to share is Proverbs 10:18, which says, "Whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and then spreads slander is a fool." So the basic point throughout the Bible is that over and over and over, gossip or slander is a bad thing. It's not something that we as Christians ought to practice at all. It's one of the deadly sins, as mentioned in the book, I think it's Proverbs, where it talks about a lying and deceitful tongue is one of the deadly sins. And yet, when we look at gossip, when we look at slander, we don't really give it the full weight that the Bible gives it. For example, you see someone and they cheat on their boyfriend, or they cheat on their girlfriend or something like that. Immediately, you know that they really screwed up. But then you have a different friend that very same day who comes up to you and starts spreading gossip or slander about another friend. We don't respond to those two socially in the same way, and yet what we're trying to say is that gossip and slander can ruin a relationship in the same way that infidelity can. It's just as impactful. And so we want to talk a little bit about what does the Bible say about how to resolve experiences of gossip. How do you resolve conflict in a healthy and Christian way? So some verses that help us deal with healthy conflict resolution in a relationship are found in Matthew 18, verses 15 through 17. They say, "If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector.
So that's a lot of verses there, but I think there's so much wisdom. And if we as a church community would just apply these verses as it's intended, then I think that we would actually be a lot better off in our relationships with other people. There are a couple things that stood out to me from this passage. The first thing is really the goal of this confrontation. A lot of times when you find out someone's been talking behind your back, or you got beef with someone else, you want to confront them really just to be angry at them, to fight at them, to call them names, to bring them down and make them really feel bad. But if you notice the attitude and the spirit in this passage, what is the goal? The goal is reconciliation. The goal is actually to build them up, and so you can be reunited in your relationship again together.
Yeah, that's super important. It's not to slander the other person, but it's to restore that relationship in a healthy way.
Yeah, and the way that you do it, step number 1 is you actually go to them one-on-one first. Usually a lot of people get these steps mixed up. They end up talking to their friends, their family, they talk to church members about these things. This is not what the Bible says. The Bible says if you have beef with someone, go and talk to them first, because you might actually be able to resolve it without ever having to slander or gossip in the first place. So if that doesn't work, what's the next step? The second step is to
bring a couple other friends along with you to kind of be a sounding board in the conversation, to kind of reconcile from there, right?
Yeah, and again, I want to highlight the goal of this, the heart behind it. The goal isn't that you have 3 or 4 or 5 of your friends all gang up on this one person. The goal, again, is we want to not lose you as a friend. We want to really value the relationship and say, hey, we love you, we care about you, but there's this issue that's stopping us from really being able to interact in a healthy way. And so the attitude, again, is restoration. Now, if he doesn't or she doesn't respond to that well again, then you can take an even larger group. Maybe the church could be symbolically like witnesses or mentors or teachers or people that can kind of speak wisdom into your life. But then at the very end, there's something that it says that Emily had to read 8 times because she couldn't say it. What is the phrase?
And if they did not listen to the church, let them be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector.
So Gentile, tax collector. Generally speaking, when you think about these kinds of people in the New Testament church, how were the Gentiles and tax collectors looked at from the church community?
Negatively, kind of as outsiders.
Yeah, they're outsiders. Yeah. But something that's interesting that Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 44 is that we should actually love our enemies and pray for those who despitefully use us. So even in the event that you have beef with someone, you confront them, they don't want to resolve it, you bring some friends to try and help that process, they don't do it, you bring an outside mentor or a teacher or a pastor involved, and they still don't, what should you do? Should you just, screw you, we don't have anything to do with you, you're disowned, you're banished from our friend group, you can't sit with us anymore, right? No, that's not the way that Jesus would handle it. Jesus would say, you know what? Even in those moments, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to love you and I'm going to serve you because that's what I should be doing as a Christian.
But not only that, but also forgiveness is a key component in helping yourself move forward past the situation and to really do the thing the Bible says to do, to forgive others who have wronged you.
Yeah.
Even if they're not going to accept your forgiveness at that time, it's the healthy response to help you move forward.
Yeah, even if they're not asking for the forgiveness, even after all those conversations, they're still angry at you and they still continue to spread lies about you and to slander you. You can still forgive them even if they didn't ask about it.
Yeah, that's what Jesus did basically his whole ministry.
Yeah.
People were not on his side a lot of times, and he just had to move forward and forgive.
Yeah, I think about Jesus' response on the cross. He said, Father, forgive them, for they don't even know what they're doing. The other person doesn't even realize, maybe they do, maybe they don't. They may not realize the damage that they're doing, and they're just going forward. You can still choose to forgive them. I think about what Buddha apparently said. He said, hating someone is like holding onto a hot coal and expecting the other person to get burned. At the end of the day, you're the one that suffers the most. If you can't forgive someone who's slandering you, if you can't forgive someone who's wronged you, as they continue to wrong you, every single day you're going to wake up with anger and anxiety in your hearts, and you're just going to allow them to continue to hurt you. But forgiving them and moving on is the number one way to stop them from having a negative influence in your life. But with that said, we want to know what you guys have to say. What advice would you give to someone struggling with gossip or slander? Let us know in the comment section below. And of course, we want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor today, Arise Apparel, which is a new Christian t-shirt brand with a fun and unique way to witness and to share your faith. A portion of the proceeds are donated to a worthy charity that supports people in the mission field. For more details, please visit ariseapparel.com and use the coupon code JUSTIN for 10% off any purchases.
But until next time, we're That Christian Vlogger, and we encourage you to experience faith in the first person. God bless.